Hey, what up, jerks? Sorry we're late. Just working on some stuff with the guest right now. Trying to make sure everything's perfect for the show tonight. We got the audio. We got our guests backstage. That's working out, but we're trying to get a PDF document. We're just trying to get it uploaded and get it ready for the show. Sorry for the delay. I saw some of you waiting. Some of you getting aggravated. We're here. Everything's fine. It's 4:20 today. 4:20, and I have two retired police officers on the show. I never would have expected that to happen when I started the show. Never. You know me. But now things have changed. Things have changed. And I got to say, this is also the birthday of the Young Jerk Show. People are wishing me happy birthday today on our Twitter. It's not my birthday, it's the show's birthday today. My birthday's next week, actually. But happy birthday to the Young Jerks, the show. Another year of the Young Jerks. I'm excited tonight. We got some good guests. We got a big week coming up. Tuesday, obviously, is the Karen Reed retrial. We're all waiting. We're all geared up. We know this is going to be crazy on Tuesday. Opening statements. The retrial is starting. We got a lot of shows planned upcoming. Tuesday night, I think Attorney Betterow is going to be back on the show here. Tuesday night, right after the opening statements for the Karen Reed trial. Betterow that night. And on Thursday night, we have a candidate for district attorney, Norfolk County, Juna Perkins. She's a former prosecutor, current attorney right now. She's running for office. She's going to be here Thursday night as well. So we got some great shows coming up this week. I hope you guys check them out. I'm feeling a little better. I listened to Betterow, and I got the D, what do we call that stuff? The Allegra D. I'm feeling a little bit better from that allergy. That last show was brutal for me. I got two good guests that I expect to speak a lot tonight, so I don't have to speak too much. So let's get to that. Since I'm feeling a little better, I got my coffee, I got my water, I took a few nights off, I got the Allegra D in me, and I got two great guests tonight. We're the retired law enforcement officers. One is a former Canton police officer. He retired as a sergeant. Sergeant Peter Murphy is here tonight, as well as the STIRM Group, which is a law enforcement consulting audit group led by a former retired state police officer, Larry Smith. Let's bring both these gentlemen up tonight. I want to talk to them about the Canton Police Audit, this police audit, what's going on with it, just how it was handled, their review of it, their criticism, what they think it was good about it, bad. I'm looking forward to having both these gentlemen on the show tonight. Larry actually thought about submitting to be a part of this police audit, and he publicly said, no, this is why the STIRM Group is not going to be a part of this police audit. And he's recently put another statement out reviewing it. So he's going to have a lot of feedback tonight. He was on John Como's show the other night, expecting to have a good discussion with him. And Peter Murphy, I think people know who Peter Murphy. He's been on the show several times, talk about Canton police officers and John O'Keefe. He's also another friend of John Como. You've seen him in a lot of John Como videos. He is also in a lot of the standouts. And Peter Murphy spoke at the Canton Police Audit public hearing, and I think they really gave him not the respect he deserved, and not only that, not the respect that his suggestions and words should have received, because I thought he had some good ideas and some good feedback for them, and they just didn't listen to it. They didn't even address it. Specifically, I felt like about the outreach. I feel like they should have done much more outreach, not just to the police officers, but to the actual community. I don't think they did that at all. I think that was Peter Murphy's comment. So let's bring both these guys up. Sergeant Peter Murphy from the Canton Police Canton Police Department, and former retired state police, Massachusetts State Police, Larry Smith with the STIRM Group. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you for having me. Peter, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Mike. Happy birthday to your show.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Young Jerks.
Yep.
But that's not why we're here today. We're not here to celebrate the Young Jerks. We're here to talk about this Canton Police Audit. Let's start with Peter, because you served in this town of Canton for a long time. You spoke at the audit hearing. What do you? How do you want to open up and talk about this tonight?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is and see if Larry would concur. I actually have a little written sentence here, if it's okay to read it, because it kind of, I think it segues into what we're going to talk about tonight. And that basically is the definition of culture. The Five Stones mentioned the word culture, Larry and Mike, many, many times, as you probably recall from that review at the Canton High School, and as well as their 800 and something, 200 and something page document. So what I guess what I would start out by saying is, with regards to the connection between culture and its referencing in the audit, I guess I would like to say two things. One is that Webster's dictionary says culture is the integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends upon man's human nature capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge to, keyword, succeeding generations. What we're talking about there is new boots on the ground and recruits coming into an organization, and how they are trained by field training officers, and how the mindset from the top down is just continued, and the culture is continued. And if it's not a good culture and it's not proficient, and there's things lacking and missing, the problems are going to continue until they're fixed. In most cases, as you saw with the state police recently, Larry's old alma mater, Governor Healy went outside, brought in a gentleman from New Jersey, Colonel Noble, I guess we have in place right now. So I just kind of wanted to, start out with saying, to me, the most important part, having worked in the law enforcement agency, is culture. And if you don't have a good culture and you don't have solid paramilitary leadership, all hell goes south.
What do you think, Larry?
I think culture is an important element. I mean, it comes from, it's the history. It's what comes down from generations and what makes it through and whatnot. So this is how we do things, the pride, the esprit de corps, things of that nature. But you also have to be able to evolve with it. I mean, what policing was 25, 30 years ago when I first got on, and what policing is today, the advent of body cameras. I mean, now there's cameras on every corner. There were no cell phone cameras. I mean, so the culture is constantly evolving, and you have to keep that in mind. And, as it stands right now, the culture's, we're in the accountability era. We were on our way to the accountability era, and we ended up getting kicked off that cliff in May of 2020 when Floyd was killed, or died, rather. I'm going to go with died. When Floyd died. So at that point, it pushed us over the edge. That pushed everybody into the body cameras, and body cameras have been a great thing for us. This is all part of culture. So body cameras have actually gone the opposite direction of what people thought. It's actually helping clear police officers on false allegations of abuse and conversations and things of that nature. Yes, it has caught some of us doing things wrong, but like I said, 10, 80, 10. You got 10% all-stars, 80% of the people do the work, do the job, and then you get 10% of the malcontents. It doesn't matter what industry you're in.
That's the truth. That's so true. Doesn't matter what place you're in. There's going to be some. So true too. The cameras help. I remember at one point, the guy we went to high school with, he was a cop, and hanging out at one of the gin joints, and he's working in uniform, and he gets assaulted by this jerk, this drunk idiot. And, he takes him in, you know what I mean? And we witnessed the whole thing. And it was like the guy tried to turn around and sue him afterwards.
Yep.
And like, we got the call, will you be a witness for this cop? And yeah, I saw the whole thing. Cop was perfect. I know I went to high school with him and stuff, but, I'm not lying for anybody. You know what I mean? Like, so like that was back then when they had no body cameras. So I have a feeling for a lot of good cops, it does help, body cameras.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just ask yourself this one question: if Canton had cameras on the night Officer O'Keefe was hit and killed or murdered, would we be here right now?
No, not a chance.
They should have had them for a long time ago.
So just saying, would we even be going through this right now if they had body cameras back then? And they were available.
Good point. Great points.
So what would you like to talk about? Where you want to go with this, Mike?
Well, let's start with the whole thing about the audit, because I feel like from the very beginning, there was a lot of faults with this whole process, from the way that the audit board was selected and the RFP that went out. So tell us about that. Let's get to that, I guess, in the beginning.
Well, back in September, they released audit proposal or RFP for audit for the Canton Police Department. That wasn't online. You had to actually send an email in and get the package emailed to you. We took that package. We put together a team of, the people that teach us how to do what we do are the people that I had on this team. We sat down. We went over every word of this. We had college professors, lawyers, police chiefs, federal agents, that had the experience in unique individual areas. We planned out a basic idea of what we would look at. And then when we were going through the RFP, it was a no-win situation. The scope was entirely too vague. The timeline was just for quality product for what they were asking. The dollar amount was entirely too low. And we voted on it, and it wasn't a money thing. It went down 9-0. Nothing goes down 9-0. I mean, Supreme Court of the United States has only had how many 9-0 decisions? It doesn't happen very often. But we went down 9-0. And so I decided, since we had to request it, I turned around and asked if there was I wrote a letter notifying them that we were going to withdraw. And from there, we waited. In that letter, I also told them why. So I just outlined some of those aspects. A couple of the other aspects that I was concerned with was who's going to end up being responsible for paying us if we get dragged into any of these upcoming high-profile trials, because we're not factoring that into that bid, not for that dollar amount, and there was no answers there. So there were way too many concerns and way too many liabilities, and there wasn't a win. And I don't have a problem with what Five Stones did. They did a really good, accurate record of what has happened. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm more, I think they missed opportunities because they focused on what was already known. You should have focused on stuff that wasn't known. And basically what I'm talking about is why were they, if you knew about these things, put a paragraph or two and then go focus on why did these things happen and who was responsible for allowing these things to happen, is where I think that audit should have gone. And had they gone there, I think you would have got a lot more bang for your buck and been a little bit more effective on that. And then the financial aspects, but we can talk a little bit more about that.
Totally. It's so funny too. Like I noticed that right away in the audit. I was like, it's like a limited hangout of what was already reported at every, select board meeting. Every time someone was testimony, we heard it, and on these shows too. Like, people were telling us about the private cell phone issue. We already knew all about that, and it's like it's like, and then they just put it in there, and that's it, that's it. Just what already was known to the people who were, focusing on this and digging in and hearing from the citizens.
I mean, the adversarial relationship that's been developed between the town and the residents, or some sect of the residents, because from what I understand, the town's pretty evenly divided here between they like the cops, they don't like the cops, and they don't like the cops are because of the Karen Reed event. And the history of what's gone on and things of that nature. It's tough to do a deep dive into a local police department when if it's coming from within, because they know everybody. It's for lack of a better word, it's incestual. And if I get to read the prologue of my upcoming book, you'll see the similarities between Methuen and Canton in regards to the connections and how they operate and how things get done.
100%.
It's interesting you say that.
I couldn't read that quick enough. Sorry.
No. I was just saying, interesting. You say that about Canton and Methuen being so similar.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll read you the 4 pages really quick, and you'll see the links. I didn't see it when I first wrote this, but then somebody brought it up after it got read the other night on a podcast. They're like, "Wow, look at the similarities of Canton." I was like, "Okay." So if you're up for it, it's quick 4 pages. I'll give it a read.
Go ahead.
Okay. From the upcoming book, 6 Degrees of Corruption, The Fleecing of a City. Prologue. Throughout the long and often sordid history of law enforcement scandals, few had been as staggering or as brazen as what unfolded in the quiet city of Methuen, Massachusetts. When the first whispers of corruption began circulating beyond city limits, the reaction was immediate and universal. That can't be real. There's no way that actually happened. Yet every word was accurate. At the heart of it all stood a corrupt police chief and a compromised city council chairman, collectively facing 23 counts of fraud with a criminal trial looming in 2025. But to the citizens of Methuen, it had been just another day in their city. Corruption doesn't break down your doors. It's welcomed in like an old friend. In the morning, it dresses like anyone else, slipping into the pants one leg at a time. By day, it wears the mask of respectability and trust, quietly stitching itself into the fabrics of Methuen city government. At night, it lays its head on the pillow, undisturbed, without a flicker of remorse. Methuen wasn't the victim of a violent robbery where the threat was obvious and immediate. It was a theft came slowly, a long con, disguised as leadership, draining the public under the illusion of service and integrity. That's the quiet power of institutional corruption. It doesn't need to break the law when it holds a pen that rewrites those very laws. The Methuen Police Department did not function as a standard law enforcement agency for 18 years. In place of a normal institutional flowchart was a power structure built on the 3 Fs: fear, favors, and fraud. At the top sat Chief Joseph Solomon, a narcissistic, egotistical, and quick-tempered leader prone to tantrums. He didn't run the department. He ruled it like the dawn of an organized crime family, using his badge not to uphold the law, but rather bending it to his will. He hadn't merely been in charge, he'd been untouchable. Solomon's leadership was never about law and order. It was all about power and control. His outbursts were legendary, his anger unpredictable, and his need for dominance absolute. He demanded loyalty above all else. And when challenged, he retaliated with calculated precision. The message had been clear: fall in line or face the consequences. A mantra repeated to me in virtually every interview. Those who obeyed the chief without question were rewarded with promotions, inflated salaries, and job security that most officers could only dream of. Those who questioned him faced humiliation or threats, or worse, forced out. As for those who defied him, Solomon made sure that their careers, reputations, and even personal lives were destroyed. For nearly 2 decades, this corruption thrived. Everyone knew it existed. Many fought to dismantle it, yet every attempt failed. Early in Solomon's career, the walls began closing in on him when a key figure in an investigation abruptly took his own life, effectively shutting down a federal probe, likely sparing Solomon from a federal indictment. Solomon was fired once by the city for mismanaging federal police grants, yet somehow he managed to claw his way back into power, returning bolder and more brazen than before. Cloaked in a false sense of invincibility, he earned the nickname Teflon Joe. After the Civil Service Commission ordered the city to reinstate Solomon as chief, he embarked on what appeared to be a calculated plan to extract every possible dollar from the city's coffers. His methods followed a pattern of boardroom-level genius, including lawsuits, contract negotiations, conferences, side businesses, double dipping, strategic promotions, and hires. To his credit, the investigators have been unable to find any concrete evidence of shakedowns or kickbacks. It took years and millions of taxpayer dollars to settle Solomon's multiple lawsuits and appeals with the city, all ending in his favor, leaving him completely unfettered. After seeing what it cost the city to go after him before, to no avail, no one dared to challenge him now. Solomon's control extended into the city council contracts, union negotiations, and even the state's training system. If those avenues didn't work, he found ways around them, using backdoor connections to get what he wanted while circumventing those who could use him, who could cause him problems, while circumventing those who could cause him problems. Over the years, he inserted his and his loyal followers, family members, into nearly every department of Methuen's government. He cultivated favors from politicians and state officials, strategically lending out his offices for stints at the DEA and FBI and other agencies, not for their career development, but to keep their foot in the door and an ear open for his unprincipled purposes. Media was Solomon's playground, and he was a resident bully. Police department blogs, social media, press releases, the MPD did not publish any form of publicity without his explicit approval. It almost always included his name somewhere in the first sentence. Local newspapers and their reporters would either write favorable stories or face static from his lawyer or henchman. Stroking the ego of the mayor at the time, an awkward, socially introverted figure, Solomon nominated him for a national anti-bullying award, brought him into a weekly poker nights, and included him in multiple out-of-state police conferences. The reward for the mayor's loyalty was a substantial salary package that only a handful of police chiefs in the nation could surpass. Solomon also inserted himself into both sides of the police union contract negotiations, a glaring conflict of interest. In doing so, he helped orchestrate one of the most outrageous municipal union contracts ever signed. The result was staggering. Superior officers saw their salaries skyrocket, with captains earning nearly $500,000 annually. Coincidentally, family members of roughly half the city councils received promotions within the department, and 2 other councilors quietly secured job offers on the force. One of those councilors, Sean Fountain, would eventually become Solomon's Achilles heel. In one of the most brazen public actions of his career, Solomon pinned a badge on an untrained, unqualified cop wannabe, handed him a gun, and unleashed him on the streets of Methuen. It was reckless, arrogant, and entirely out in the open. And though it would take 5 more years, that decision marked the beginning of the end. After years of sliding by untouched, the first cracks finally started to show in Teflon Joe's armor.
Wow.
So, what do you think, Peter? Does that sound like Canton, Massachusetts, a little bit?
A lot of it. I think there's a lot of similarities in what I just heard.
And this is what happens. I mean, you have hometown preference, you have civil service requirements, and you draw from a very limited pool. So you could have a disabled veteran non-resident, you could have a veteran non-resident score 100, 105 on the test, but an individual from the hometown city, whether that be Canton, Boston, Salisbury, it's going to be the 70 score will go before the disabled veteran and the veteran that wasn't a resident. I would almost argue the civil service has kind of outlived its usefulness, and you'll see a little bit more about that in the book as well.
Mike, if I can just jump in,
Go ahead,
when I first opened up at the start of the show, I said what I was going to comment on sort of had a 2-part series. The second part of it is kind of tied into the first, but my summation was when the culture existing within a law enforcement agency justifies its own misdeeds and neglect of duty, i.e. failure to act, there is no fix except a search for a new chief from outside that Canton Police Department. And I think that's what is very evident in the Methuen issue, is that it just dovetails from one bad gesture into another, into another, into another. Promotions, created opportunities. It just proliferates. And I think that's what Larry just spoke to.
Exactly. It's unfortunate because there needs to be something. But we're here to talk about that audit. So something I did pick up on, Mike, the other day, some people don't really understand the difference between an audit and an investigation, and that there are different types of audits. So I put something together really quick to help with. If you don't mind, I'll just go over it so there's no confusion and everybody understands what the role was of Five Stones in regards to doing this. So basically, folks, an audit is a snapshot at the time the auditors are looking at what is going on. They're looking at, there's different types of audits. You have performance audits and operational audits, basically the same thing. And they're measuring the effectiveness of and the compliance within the policies. And this is basically what Five Stones was supposed to do. Then there's the administrative audit, which basically takes care of the administrative paperwork, the compliances, the policy reviews, making sure the policies are up to date. You have financial audits. They can be a forensic in nature or they can be administrative. So, we'll just go with financial audit right now, but that's basically for any financial transactions that you have. Okay. And then you have for police, you have evidence and property audits, which are going to go through everything that takes place with regards to police evidence from the time that they identify it, seize it, secure it, transport it, inventory it, sign it in, test it, go to trial, bring it back out, destroy it. Every one of those steps is eligible for part of an evidence and police audit, along with inventories, audit controls, policies and procedures, login menus, security, things of that nature. And then we have the forensic audit, which basically takes on a criminal element to it. So any one of these could be a criminal one, with the exception of policies and procedures, unless those policies and procedures are designed not to, or designed to prevent you from breaking criminal laws, and by violating them, you do break them. For the most part, they look broadly at the compliance and the efficiency. Investigations are very targeted for misconduct or criminal acts. And here's a big thing that people don't understand. There's a thing called the Yellow Book. It is the Bible of auditing government agencies. It is big, it is thick, it is ungodly to read, but it provides the framework to conduct quality auditing standards for U.S. government offices, for the U.S. Government Accountability Office. It provides a framework for high-quality audits. It goes over, it's updated periodically. Last time it was updated was 2018. And it applies performance audits, financial audits, and attestation engagements. Does Yellow Book cover law enforcement? Technically, yes, under performance audits, but there's not a specific element to it. So, you can go into the use of force practices because that's an operational audit, or the policy, the evidence on the property, the procurement, civil asset forfeiture programs, overtime, compliance with accreditation standards, career and impact. We can talk about that. Hiring and promotion practices, financial management. So there's a lot to it. It's not just as, an audit. People that don't do them don't understand them. And I don't blame you. They're boring when it's done when I talk about it, I feel like I'm boring. So that's really a good part of what we do when you're looking at audits. So why the scope of the contract is so important is because you have to define what those scopes are. If you leave all this open, how do I tell you what I'm supposed to look at? It's all encompassing. There's no way you could do that.
Like this scope, talk about like what a normal police audit with a proper scope would look like. Like what would they be looking at?
So let's go back to, let me look back here for a second. So evaluations. So let's go with an administrative audit. You call for an administrative audit and you would actually dictate that you would be looking at the internal administrative So you're going to be reviewing records. You're going to be seeing that people sign in and out of the evidence room. You're going to see that, you're going to check video cameras to make sure, spot audit body cameras, spot audit video cameras around the facility, people that are coming in. You're making sure they're operating the way that they're supposed to operate. So you're not only just checking those policies and procedures, you're checking that they're adhering to those policies and procedures.
Right.
So now you're specifically spelling out what you're supposed to do. And that could be under that one. Now, if you're going to ask for a second add-on, then say you were going to go to a financial audit. Well, you could dictate in that financial audit, these are the accounts we want you to do a forensic audit of or an administrative audit of. From this period to this period, we'll provide all the statements that and you explain it all out. So now we understand where we're going, where we're ending, and what we're looking at. So we have an estimation of how long it's going to take us based off of how many transactions, things of that nature. Do we have to chase them? How much are you going to help us? You tell us you help us, but then reality isn't you help us. Or sometimes people are very helpful. It really has a lot of areas that we don't have a direct involvement in. We can tell you what we need, but we can't make you. It's kind of like taking the horse to water. Can't make them drink.
A lot of things that I felt like they could have investigated and they didn't, or even audit. I don't even know how you'd audit these things, but I'll give you an example, Larry, and I think Peter knows about some of these things, but one that's really bugged me for the longest time, it's when I emailed the police chief myself about it because I was so mad about it. I've collected signatures for years for different ballot initiatives and campaigns and things like that, so I know a lot about collected signatures in the state.
Yep.
They investigated the women, volunteers, like not like a paid organization, not doing this full time, just town citizens, women, were collected signatures for the police audit. And they basically opened a criminal investigation, apparently, on the signature gathering for the police audit. The Canton Police started this. And I was just out. I couldn't believe that they actually did that. Based on, they said someone called them and complained and said, I didn't sign it. It says I signed it. Someone did fraud. I don't know. I've never seen anything like it because I've followed ballot initiatives too, a lot of them. The only two times there's been any scandals in the state about them or any signatures that I've ever seen is one, it was like a big campaign that was for school choice. There was a lot of funny money being spent, so there was a state investigation on that. And there was another outfit out there that was collecting signatures for money, for $5, $10 a signature, and they were doing the fraudulent signatures for money. That's the only two times. And both times the state investigated it. It wasn't a town. It wasn't a town police force. I just thought it was outrageous that they would even consider investigating these citizens who were collecting signatures for a police audit. The same police audit, the same police department is now going to investigate them.
I have a problem with that, but you have to have the will and you have to have the means and the people behind it to effectuate any change.
Exactly.
And that's what, I will give Canton kudos. I disagree with some of the tactics at some points in time. I disagree with the fact that you shouldn't be harassing officers when they're out with their family. There's a time and a place when they're out eating or out in the mall or something like that. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. But if you want to put a ballot question together to get funding, and you all come together and you do it that way, and you get out there and you have your standouts and you host your protests, you do that's worked for you all. It's gotten you where you want and what you have, and it's holding people accountable. Now, what the outcome is, I don't know. I tell people all the time, I don't have an opinion one way or the other, because I deliberately stayed out of this case because I thought there was a potential that we may have there was a potential for an audit. So I didn't want to be totally compromised by saying I have in-depth knowledge. So I deliberately stayed away, and we were in the evidence room doing an audit for another police department when the first trial happened. So, but yeah, you have to have transparency. You have to have accountability. And, time and place is not to fight on the side of the road, though. take it to the people, take it to the press, take it to the social media. Fighting side of the road, guarantee you don't win. So,
You want to make a comment on it?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to make any comment on the fact that Rafferty and the Canton Police Department were investigating Kathleen, but gathering signatures for the police audit?
I could make a generalization that in my knowledge firsthand and secondhand, that there's been a weaponization of that police department, and there's been an installation of fear in the population. And that's one of the examples that you're talking about of police officers going to and ringing doorbells to ask who signed signatures and who did this and who did that. And there is a reign of terror in that town. I saw it at the audit. I was talking to people that Saturday that they had the unveiling, the peeling back of what they found in that 90-minute presentation. And people were coming to me saying, Peter, things are probably worse than they were when you first talked to me a few years ago. We are further in fear and further down the rabbit hole right now of getting this town righted and feeling that we could come out and speak anywhere. People just are tight-lipped and shut up and don't dare speak. And again, I think that speaks to a need for change at the top and soon.
Another part of this police audit that I thought was weak, what Bay State's saying here. They say the Canton Police Department knows how to investigate when they want to. They produced a 36-page Ducky report.
That's what I was laughing at.
I was actually in the report when the guy gave me this Ducky. I was in the damn report. They quoted us. That was just ridiculous. And the police audit, again, they were like, oh yeah, if someone breaks the law, you should definitely go after them and investigate them. But I don't know. Did the guys from the police audit not realize that all the charges got dismissed? Everybody's charges got Canton 9, their charges got dismissed. Rich Schiffer, the Duck King, his charges got dismissed. Peter, you were up on something even. They even went after you. Are you in the clear now too? What's going on with that?
To a degree, I'm in the clear. It was, in my opinion, none of the elements of the charge of trespassing, Larry, were in the document, in the complaint. And as a matter of fact, it came out at the magistrate's hearing when my attorney, who of course I had to pay for, asked the question. Well, there is no information here that speaks to when Mr. Murphy was put on notice, and by whom, and who had authority, and was it in writing, and how was it delivered? And he looked at me, and I shook my head. I had asked for discovery. I had nothing. And the prosecuting police officer said, oh, well, there was a supplemental report, and Mike, you can speak to this. On September 14th of 24, when we had that big standout in front of the police station, and you were there, Mike, there was 7 or 8 of us that were all there and spoke, and content writers. There was never any police interaction, yet they testified, or the police prosecutor testified, that that's when I was put in notice when 2 police officers came out. Not true. And so the attorney said, well, where is the supplemental report that you just spoke of that puts Peter on notice? And we don't have it. And the magistrate, as I recall, said something to the effect, neither do I. So where the hell was the report? It wasn't in the folder. It wasn't in the jacket, Larry. You tell me. And there was as Mike just spoke to, there was the Canton 9. 4 cruisers came up at a high rate of speed on 2 wheels. And that got dismissed. There was
people holding signs. That's
people
all they
holding,
were doing. They were holding signs.
Holding signs across the street on the sidewalk, not blocking traffic, not causing a disturbance. Then there was the Duck guy, Richie Schiffer, with a 36-page report, 6 months worth of warrants and downloads of computers from vehicles, and then let me see, there was me, and there was another. Oh, there was the James White allegations of assault and battery on a public official, to wit, the select board member, and that was they were dismissed and held open, Larry, with an open folder for 6 months. And if there were no further breaches of or similar cases brought forward against us, the folder gets closed and it goes away.
So they quaffed you.
They quaffed. Yeah, but all of them, like Mike just said, there was 9 witness intimidations. There was the rubber ducks. There was
some of them weren't even quaffed. Some of them were outright dismissed by the judge, like the magistrate or the judge, whoever it was. Like with Rich's stuff got just thrown out. The judge is just like, nope, not doing this. This is ridiculous.
And the judge wrote a scathing.
The same thing with like when I talked about that criminal investigation into gathering signatures. What I started emailing the chief. FOIA. I wanted to know every detail about like how did they start that investigation? Like who called, and I got so mad too. Like, but it wasn't long before the chief realized that they had to recuse themselves, and they kicked it over to the state. And the state knows that they're not investigating that. They know that there was nothing. So I mean, again, that's what like drives me nuts about this audit. They get up there and they pontificate, and they sit there and like wave their finger like, the police officers are being bullied. But they never mention all these, and if someone breaks the law, you should prosecute them, but never mentions that all the cases were thrown out in one way or the other. No one actually was found guilty on any of those charges. So I mean, it's just, what are they doing here? And I just feel like, again, the police audit tipped their hand. They showed how full of it they were, and just buying into whatever the Canton Police Department says, because there's been a lot of crap that's happened, and they haven't been winning. The Canton Police Department look like fools, and there's a reason why citizens, like Peter said, don't feel safe and don't have trust in the Canton Police, and it's over and over again. And what, Larry, you were saying earlier when you were reading about Methuen, how things got so politicized and power. It's about power. That's what absolutely. This is. It feels like that so much over and over again, and people see it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, talk about, let's, if you don't mind getting back to that audit part, I got a couple things to go over. What you have to understand, we talked about CALEA, and we talked about the accreditation, which was briefly covered in the 5-stone investigation, or in 5-stone audit rather. So the CALEA is the national standard for law enforcement accreditation. Okay. Then you have the Mass Police Accreditation Commission. That is the Massachusetts specific version of CALEA. So it's very tailored to Massachusetts laws. Now, the process is that you apply, you pay this money to this 501c3, which is the Mass Police Accreditation Commission. And here's the problem. It is a 501c3 private entity. They have the assessment manuals. They've established the assessment guidelines. They know what they're looking for. They have the assessment paperwork. They have the assessment manuals. And then basically they go in and they do an assessment of a police department based off of what they're looking for. So it could be, and what I mean by policy, they have a manual. They go over everything. Okay. So they're going over their evidence. They're going on internal affairs. They're going over citizen complaints. They're going over everything. So basically they come in, they take these forms and whatnot, and they look at them, they assess them, they attach them to their evaluations. They take all the material with you and they leave. And then they send you back a certificate, or they send you back a letter saying we didn't get it. Well, now as a citizen, if you file a Freedom of Information request, which I've done for one department, I was told they have no records that are available from that assessment. They have the certificate that says that they're certified. Well, I then tried to get the copy of the newest manual from the Mass Police Accreditation Commission, and I was told they're a private company. I went to Secretary Galvin's office. I asked, and I was again told they're a private company. My curiosity and my concern here is that they are a private company that answers to nobody, has super secrecy in regards to what their assessment manuals are and what their assessment, the assessment documents that they're going after and whatnot. I know they say that it's supposed to be the best standards and practices. They're not the best standards and practices. I am a certified fraud examiner. I have been for close to 10 years now. And I understand what best practices are in regards to physical security because I'm also a certified protection professional from the American Society of Industrial Security. Those organizations are actually approved for as an accreditation agency by one of the two global corporations, ANSI, and it's 3 letters. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. There's another one. They provide certifications to accreditation agencies like ACFE, ACES, STIRM, so that they provide these trainings, these certifications. They have to submit all their paperwork, all their test questions, all their evaluations, all their instructor manuals. Everything goes into these organizations. They review it, and then they say, okay, you can be an accreditation agency for this. This is not what's happened with Mass Police accreditation. It's not what happened with CALEA. They don't have it. They were established by police chiefs. So what says that you're using the best industry standards and practices? And how do we know that just because we're supposed to take you at your word that we're using your best industry standards and practices based off your word because you keep everything so secret and locked down? Why is a 501c3 private company fully funded by Massachusetts taxpayer dollars through the police department's membership able to keep all this stuff out of sight from the general public? How, the perception is that if you get an accreditation, you've met bare bones minimum professional standards. So people want to understand that. And this is why this is important, because Five Stones identified multiple things that would have definitely violated in regards to policies and the investigations, the evidence, processing the scene, things of that nature. So my question is, they were certified in 2015. They were renewed if they went by their policy in 2018, 2021, and should have been 2024. I don't know, because again, it's hard to get that information. So if they had, and they are currently accredited, so how did they fall from these professional standards to such a degree in these critical elements, being the collection and processing of evidence, the internal affairs and things of that nature that were identified? And this is where I have a problem with the Five Stone. It's not that you did a bad report. You focused on stuff that we already knew. I would have focused on finding out, how did you fall so far from these standards that this became this? And who's responsible for that? That's what I would have focused on from the audit perspective.
Do that. They didn't really point any fingers at who was responsible for what.
No. And that's part of the audit. An audit is to tell you what is wrong when you identify it. You've identified these things. Okay. You identified that they're wrong. You didn't identify why, you didn't identify how, and you didn't assign blame to anybody. And, it didn't just happen overnight. It happened for a reason. Was it poor supervision? Was it poor training? Was it poor training coming out of the academy? I mean, who knows? Because they didn't look. And there's a problem. That was our concern when we looked at it to begin with, because it's $200,000. And it's not like $200,000 today. I mean, $200,000 when it came out isn't $200,000 today. So think of it from that perspective. How much everything has gone up. It was a pittance in comparison to the people that were coming in. I mean, bad lawyers, $300 an hour. You get people coming in crawling through the dirtiest, nastiest paperwork that you have and everybody's dirty secrets in the town as part of the audit and looking at things. You don't want to lowball that. And these audits should be taking place when every police chief takes over. It should be taking place every time you change an evidence custodian, because evidence is your biggest liability inside the city. Look at where you're at right now because of evidence. Look at where Braintree went because of evidence. Look at the drug lab where it went with evidence. How many millions of drug lab, billions of dollars has this cost us? Right. We have the ability to stop this. We just choose not to.
Too bad this. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mike. Just to speak to what Larry was just addressing, I would assume when I heard, Larry, that you had backed off on further negotiating or looking into working on that audit proposal, the RFP, I kind of sensed that you were on point in that for $200,000, you couldn't even begin to uncover. You wouldn't even get past the first page of the table of contents to get into what you really needed to get into. And I think, that the audit itself was destined to fail from the beginning. And I think you smelled that out when you realized the infighting and the bashing that was coming from the chairman, McCarthy, and Mr. Muse and Mr. Kelly, who both live in Rafferty homes in Canton that were built by Rafferty, not Helena, but her dad. I mean, the whole thing just had a bad spin on it. And they went after Kathleen. They didn't let Dave do anything. It was going to be a 3-2 vote, automatic default right out of the box. So credits to you for having the foresight to stay the hell away from it.
Well, in one question, real quick question, Bob, I feel your pain. That was actually one of the things we were going to do. We were actually unannounced. We were going to periodically go out during the window of time that we would have been there to actually interview business owners and citizens of Canton while they're out and about. So we would get a fair sampling without having any identification until we stopped and asked them if they wanted to talk to us. That way we could get a little bit of input from the business owners and get input from the citizens. So you get perspective. We would have interviewed every police officer just like Five Stones did. How do you get buy-in from half the town when half the town's ignored?
Right.
And now you produce a report that they're going to be suspect of anyways because of 3-2 and the animosity. I mean, of what I watched with those board meetings, that was one of the most unprofessional things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they turn around in the report and blame the citizens. They basically said the only issue we have here is the Canton police have low morale because the citizens are mad. I mean that's basically the only really place they pointed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's it. You pointed it there. But I'm going to tell you, look, I use this analogy. Bill Belichick, good coach, right? One of the greatest coaches of all time. He got fired from the Indianapolis Colts, not because he was a bad coach, because he was a bad fit. He came to New England. He won 6 Super Bowls, lost 3, went to how many AFC championships in a 21-year window. So he proved that he was a good coach. He just wasn't the right fit there. He was able to get buy-in. He was able to get this. When coaches lose locker rooms, you can't buy a new team. You have to buy a new coach. So you lost the locker room here.
Yeah, good point.
Outreach is the way you get it back. No question about it.
Uncle Frito, it's while they're out with their family members, not while they're in uniform, is what I was talking about. So there's no body campers.
Peter, are you on mute or is it me? It might be me. I'm getting a little.
Who, me?
No, I think Peter.
Me?
Could be me though. Could be because I'm getting things like delayed. Sometimes that's like bad internet or a stream. But I think Peter's muted.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha.
There you go. You're back.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I wasn't close enough to the mic. I'm sorry.
It could be me.
Can you hear me now?
Do you want to say? Do you have anything else to say on this too, Peter?
Well, I can go back. I was affiliated with this department back in the early 70s when I became what would you call it? Not even a permanent admittant at the time. Anyway, I date back to the 70s, and I have 30-something years of auditing in my own head, my own mind. I've seen an awful lot. I know an awful lot, and I've seen. You'll love this one. I've seen computers when we first went to the computer system end up in a guy's closet, and he was not a police officer, but he had all the records and everything that was happening in the Canton Police Department at his mainframe and his computer, monetarily. I made sergeant in '88. I had to file a grievance because we had a 60% failure rate at the range of firearms, the 357 Magnums, because they were wheel guns and the heat compromised the metallurgy in the gun, and it was shaving lead. We had a 60% failure rate at the range. the range officer called the station. I was on the desk as a sergeant that day and said, I need another weapon brought up here. We just had a detective's gun fail. I ran up, I had somebody run the gun up, and that gun failed. And that, lo and behold, that was actually the sitting chief's gun at the time that he took out of his desk drawer and handed it to the officer to bring up to the range. Shotguns were coming back from the police academy, failing, and the troopers were saying, to the recruits, if you ever show up at the range with these shotguns again, you're going to be terminated and you'll have to start again. There's just a litany of things I could go into, but the point I want to make is I do not want to disparage the good officers that I believe are still in that department that worked for me years ago and are still there. But there have been 13 officers, 12 or 13 that have vacated, both new recruits and old recruits. One guy had 27 and a half years, and he was a third generation cop, and he transferred. I think morale, I think it speaks volumes. I could go on, but I want to confirm that there's good police officers there. I feel really, really, really badly for them. I hope they're okay. I hope their head is in the right place. I hope they're not depressed. We're trying to get you help on the way, officers, and we've got you the audit. We got rid of Conley, and we're working on one more vacancy right now as her contract comes up very soon. And I trust in you. I trust the majority of you are good. I know there might be some problems. I know who they are. The town knows who they are. Hang in there, boys and girls.
Mayuna, you're correct. I agree with you, Peter. You got to stand behind the good, solid police officers. They're not. I mean, look, like I said, every department's got them. If you're saying no, then you're just naive or you're lying. One of the
10-80-10 is what you say.
Yes, it is, and that's been proven out in multiple different studies. Might change to 90, 98, 9 to 82 to 9, but yeah, it's in that general proximity.
Yeah. I mean, we have human resource issues where there's been narcotics issues with officers. There's been stolen firearms from the evidence room. And Mike, Larry, this goes back. I believe somewhere in the audit, they said they went back 10 years, but they also went back 4 chiefs. Do you recall that? Or does that come to mind? 4 chiefs.
I remember it, but I don't remember 4 chiefs. I remember 10 years. I remember more dates and times and names.
Right.
More to me.
But 4 chiefs would take it way back. And like I said, I was affiliated back in the early 70s. But even 10 years, if the current chief and hierarchy of the command staff have been there for more than 10 years, 20 and almost 30, what are you giving them? A pass in the last 20, the 20 years before the last 10?
It's hard. You can't change what happened yesterday. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. So you kind of have a small window to work in. And, I get what happened. But here's the thing. When I go into a lot of evidence rooms, even when I find out stuff happened, because it's so old and it's so gone and it's so cooked that there's no way really to get to the bottom of it. And it's like, at what point in time do you just either surrender that aspect or you put more money at it? And let's face it, budgets are tight. I mean, audits aren't cheap. I mean, an actual legitimate audit, you're accounting for all the evidence. Kalia and MPAC don't require that. If you know what the starting quantity is, they allow you to do statistical analysis and get 98% after a certain number out of the certain number that you had. But if that number is off, you can't use that. I haven't walked into a police department yet that can tell me with certainty that they have 4,272 items. No, I take that back. There's been one police department. And I'd love to give them a shout out, but it's not my place.
Gotcha.
Chief Rafferty's name came up. Well, sort of came up. The contract. Chris Albert right now, the select board member. I feel like from his statements the other night at the select board is not going to excuse himself with a conflict of interest on her contract. His brother is on the police force. I think he believes now that if it's not his brother's contract, he can vote on his brother's boss's contract. And the thing is, like, the appearance that he's getting special favors from this police chief is all over the place. Like, everyone feels like that way. That she personally works for Chris Albert now. That's what people feel. What do you think about that? Should Chris Albert excuse himself as a conflict of interest on deciding the contract extension for the chief of police? We'll go with Larry.
Yes, without a doubt, unequivocally, yes. He recused himself last time. I just finished completing a bias class that I'm teaching, or I'm going to be teaching, and it covers biases and reverse biases and investigations and things of this nature. He shouldn't be anywhere near that vote. And if he does, I'm suspecting he's going to end up pulling a ethics violation. So why would you do that? You already recused yourself. How are you going to get back into it for the same thing? So go ahead and do it. But free advice, I wouldn't.
And Larry, how long would that take to cycle through an ethics violation? She'd end up with a 1 year's contract and still get paid every day at chief's pay until it resolves itself, probably, right?
That's if the ethics board actually took it. I'm not all that impressed.
Yeah, they're not that great.
No.
But still, why would he? Yeah, it's a good point. Why would he even do that?
It makes no sense. You're going to bring the heat on you. You've already recused yourself. Why would you? I mean, tell me, where is the win in this for anybody?
He must really. Helena Rafferty must mean a lot to him.
Give me one positive that comes out of him and taking this vote. Well, I know what the positive is going to be on the other side, but I mean, for the town, it's not fair. You've already stayed out. Your boss his boss, who you are the boss of, voting on her contract. I mean, look at what happened to Methuen. 6 or 7 city councilors, their family members got promotions prior to that big vote that paid the captains $500,000. So how can you get away with that?
Right. Yeah.
Christian.
And again,
what do you think, Peter?
100%. And speaking to again, I don't mean to beat this, but speaking to culture, I can speak firsthand to a situation where there were serious allegations across the whole town. It's a small town. People were coming to me 6 ways to Sunday reporting that they had heard that there was a serious ongoing problem at a business, and it involved a police officer who was sworn and on duty. So I brought it to, at the time, a lieutenant who I was working with on a detail that day. And the response by that lieutenant, who's now a deputy chief, was, "Don't tell me nothing about it. I don't want to know nothing about it. It happened on her watch," and he scampered away from me. Now, you tell me, Larry, shouldn't somebody in the hierarchy and the command staff have said to me, "Hey, do me a favor. When we get off the detail, I'll pay you an hour's overtime to go in and do a report or 2 from and put it in writing. I'm very concerned about, as you are, Sergeant, about the integrity of that police department, our police department. I want something in writing right away. Don't even wait till tomorrow. Give it to me tonight." And you know what? When I put it in writing to the other lieutenant at the time, I don't ever recall seeing any adjustment in that individual's schedule that had been alleged doing the misdeeds. The old adage, which Larry can attest to, Mike, it didn't happen on my watch. You're not going to ruin my legacy.
And
don't sugarcoat it.
Some of it comes down to this. I mean, you get to know everybody. You're friendly with everybody, and when you promote within, or you keep people from in the same unit and promote them up in the unit, you have a problem child. Well, there's politics and all politics are local politics, whether it's at the state level or the municipal level. So all of a sudden you've got this problem child. Well, he's related to somebody in town or on the city council or the mayor or, the DPW director. And, you're giving them a pass because you don't want to be that bad guy. You don't want to be the guy that writes that person up because, this person, you deal with this person, they'll make your life more complicated. Or your boss is going to ask you, well, what are you doing wrong that is allowing this to happen that the sergeant has to write him up? If that's how things are supposed to be going. So you should be asking these questions. And they're not getting asked. People don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the bad guy either.
Nobody does.
I'd rather be the bad guy at the local level and take care of it and protect my people as well as I can and give them the teachable moment than have headquarters come down and slam them.
Right.
So there's different ways to do it, but it's got to get addressed. But a lot of people don't have the ability or don't want to take on that responsibility. They're go along, get along. They're the 80%, and they don't want to be that individual that is, stirring the pot, rocking the boat, whatever.
Right. And Five Stones mentioned it on the review. They said, look, I could be your best friend, but what did you know? Or what did I know? When did I know it? And what did I do about it? I got to take you to task. Sorry, buddy. Right now we're doing business. We're not doing friendships. And that's what did you know? When did you know it? And what the hell did you do about it? And if you didn't do anything, that ship sailed.
Yeah. And, there's a lot here, but the part that they really needed, and this is the important part of the audit. The audit had an opportunity to help quell the divide and maybe calm the waters down a little bit so that things could start to get accomplished and moved on, if you will.
Right.
And it seems like that was missed because they don't put blame where blame belongs. And I'm sorry, if you fall that far out of standards from Kalia, that's on the bosses.
Right.
Because they should have notified it. They should have identified it, and they should have taken corrective action or identified why that was happening, whether it's lack of training, lack of supervision, but it needed to be done.
Right.
You go back to Braintree. Braintree was brought forward as a result of the DA's office making inquiries because they weren't getting the evidence they needed in the timely fashion that they were supposed to. Bob, I'll tell you about the low morale of the citizens. I don't disagree, but give me a minute. The Braintree Police Department, their evidence custodian ended up deceased. They lost $400,000. I've read both Crow reports. I've talked about this to other people because we deal with evidence, and obviously it has been known to come up periodically. But that department did an amazing job under the chief they brought in to take care of that. When they got done, they did the entire audit. They brought in an RFID evidence management system to track evidence in real time. They turned around and they designed a new evidence room. They put glass walls on the evidence room. You know why they put glass walls on the evidence room? Nothing should take place in the evidence room that can't happen in a roll call room except physically secure the items. So there's no reason to have any expectation of privacy in there. It also makes people look when they walk by, hey, pick this up. Supervisors can't go in, nobody can go in the evidence room, but it doesn't mean you can't look at it from afar and see what the condition of it is. That's partially helpful. I mean, I've walked in evidence rooms, you have to push the door open to get in.
Which stuff there?
I'm like, it's a hoarder's nightmare.
Yeah. That's a good question. Were there any positives from the audit?
Yeah, I mean, there was some good stuff taken away from it. I mean, the fact that they did identify it, so now it's been professionally identified. So, I disagree with the what was it, the leaf blower. I disagree with the bags and stuff. But what they've done is they've identified all these things and put them in a official report. So now, at least if you decide you're going to go fix this or address this, you have something to understand where you're going from. Could it have been better? Yeah. But I don't think it was necessarily their fault that it wasn't better. I think it's that the town, to be honest, we told them how to fix it. We gave them all the suggestions. We told them to delay the time lane. We told them to pull the RFP back. We told them how to fix the scopes of the services. Hell, I would have taken, if you didn't want me in it, I would have come and been the contractor to tell you how to write the scope and make sure that you got the best qualified company. And I would have, we also told you after that, put it after the Karen Reed's second trial, because you're going to lose out. It almost seems like they were rushing this to get this through for a certain timeline. And I didn't know what that timeline was until I saw what was happening and votes and stuff that when this audit report came out. And now it makes sense to me, but I didn't bother to go look at it before.
It's funny how everything gets released right before an election and then the retrial.
Well, to speak to that, I when I read the first page of the Five Stones introductory page, it read to me, knowing what I know, it read to me more like a campaign blitz for John Conley and a renewal blitz for the Chiefs contract. I mean, there was accolades left and right throughout the 8.5 by 11 page, Mike. I don't know whether you're going to touch on it later, but I certainly could. There is a case in Canton. It was an incident in 2018. It was on Christmas Eve morning. There was a bad car accident. No body was found at the scene. The wreck was immediately removed. There were no pictures taken, I don't believe. There were no spray paint dots as to where the car was. It was off to the side of the road. They could have left it for the state police reconstruction team. They had to come and find it up at a tow lot an hour and a half later. Believe it or not, in the interim, somebody called and said, there's a body laying in the snow, not in the snow, but on the lawn. This was after the accident scene was cleared. And there was a deceased victim laying in the lawn less than 70 feet from the car, and there had been car seats out there. You mean you couldn't call a canine officer, which I think Canton had one or two at the time, and maybe look for a critically injured person that might have been dazed and walked away from the car? That's just one case. That's the Casey case. Then there's the Sandra Birchmore case. Larry may be familiar with these, he may not. And then there's the O'Keefe case. There's 3 total failures, in my opinion, by a law enforcement agency. And you want to renew a contract?
Yeah.
You worried about culture?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Like, I guess one of the last questions tonight is the citizens, because I know a lot of Canton citizens watch these shows. What should they be doing or asking for or rallying? What would your advice to them be right now?
Is that to Larry?
I'm going to say, like I said earlier, I commend you. You got the vote. You got out the citizenry. Getting rid of the apathy to get citizens engaged is astronomically and hard. Look at what we get for local election turnout versus a state election versus a national election. People they don't have the time. I mean, back in the day, you had Sundays off, family day, people read newspapers. Now you get inundated, instant news, instant press, and, half the stuff. I've seen the Pope's died 3 different times on social media. He's still alive, as far as I know. I've seen other things that, and everybody just believes what they see online. They don't look and take time to go look someplace else to get information. So it's more about trying to get the citizenry engaged and get rid of the apathy, because you're in charge of your own destiny. They only sit in those seats because you put them in those seats. They stay in those seats because you don't take them out of those seats. Right. So really, you did a good job this time around. And I don't know any of these people, but what I mean by you did a good job this time around, you just got another select board member. And I assume that's somebody that somebody wanted more than the person that was there. So you got together, you put together your team, you got out, you rung the door, you got the signatures, you did everything you're supposed to. You played within the rules. That's your victory. Now what you have to do, if you're still 3-2, well, you got to go get somebody else. You're on the right track. You're doing it the right way. And I give you mad kudos for that. But, you for all the good things that you do, some of the stupid stuff discredits your cause in other people's eyes. And I'm not saying, it just happens. Some people don't like profanity. Some people are okay with profanity. So it's, where you get your news source, how you get your news source. But the big thing is getting the people back engaged. You're the ones that control what you want. They only get to do what they do because we leave them there and we put them there.
Right.
Peter, what do you think?
I don't know whether Larry's familiar with this, but there has been retaliation, Larry, against people that have spoken out against either the police department, or what would be deemed as Karen Reed supporters. Their lawns have been damaged, their garden's been damaged. There was toxic chemicals thrown on their property. One woman was brushed by a mirror of a vehicle while she was walking through a parking lot. In my opinion, it would be certainly worthy of a complaint of assault by means of a dangerous weapon to a motor vehicle. The husband had to pull her out of the way. They called me and they said, "What do you think should happen to that case?" I said, "Well, you should get a police report written right away, see what happens." And I said, "If you're not happy, I'll give you directions to the Boston FBI office." And that's where people are at. They are hesitant to go to the police department with a report.
And that's wrong.
That's really wrong.
The thing is, I was taught, if something happens to you when I was a kid, go to a priest, go to a cop, go to a teacher.
Right.
I'm not sure I'd send my kids to any one of them right now. No, I kid you.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because the sacred goats aren't sacred goats anymore. And it's not because they, that we took the sacredness from them. It's that we've realized they're human. People make mistakes.
Right.
I guess, what are anything else that we didn't cover tonight that you want to get into with Larry?
Me? Or are you asking the audience in the chat?
Notes.
I'm asking Larry first. Anything else that we didn't cover tonight that you wanted to get into about the audit?
I'm pretty sure I got all the audit stuff because I really wanted to talk about the accreditation, the basically making people understand what an audit is versus an investigation. I wanted people to understand that there are different types of audits, and I wanted them to understand what you could take away from that report. But I also wanted them to understand where I think there are still things that need to be looked at. And that is, it doesn't tell you why your department fell from a minimal professional standard so low that we're here today. Because if you had body cameras, had you followed policies and procedures, had your policies and procedures been updated, had you put blood in a paper bag as opposed, or put blood in a vial or put the biologicals in the paper and things of that nature, had you collected everything right and done all the evidence, and this is where I stand, I just have a hard time thinking that with all the evidence issues that this was going to go forward. I mean, I was surprised, to be honest with you, just based off of the evidence, how it was collected, how it was handled, the questions, things of that nature. I mean, it's due process. Anybody that's charged with a crime under due process has the right to face their accuser and evaluate the evidence that's being used against them in a crime. And they have reasonable expectation to believe that the evidence that they're getting is the evidence that was taken from them in the condition that was taken from them the night of. And you know what? You could simply have proved that had you photographed her car when you took it.
We could talk, Mike, through tonight into tomorrow morning and probably 3 more days, Larry, myself, and you, about evidence and what wasn't done at these crime scenes we're referencing right now. I just have one question for Larry, if it's okay to throw it at him.
Sure.
How would you rate, I guess, 2-part question. How would you rate the Chairman McCarthy's scoping and direction that the audit was automatically heading into, which you could have bid on and looked at, and how would you rate 5 stones?
I can't rate 5 stones, Peter. That's not fair to me. It's not fair to them. I didn't see the material they looked at. I didn't deal with the people that they talked to. It'd be pure speculation. All I'm basing my stuff on is their reports. I don't know any of the individuals there that I'm aware of.
I meant as far as their conclusions, but that's fine. What about the scoping of by the audit committee to get to that point?
Well, I think it was obviously flawed because I bothered to withdraw and I told them why. And I told them what was wrong with their scope. I told them what was wrong with the entire project and how to, and it wasn't just me. This was a collective this was the stuff that came out of our meeting that I wrote down and then just basically flipped into a letter and put it forward so that they knew why. If we were going to withdraw and they decided they wanted to pull the RFP and they wanted to make the modifications, well, maybe we'd be back into it. But they didn't, and they moved forward, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But I'm still going to sit here and tell you, you didn't get what you needed. And that was the concern we had at $200,000, the short scope of window. And then you got to factor in check the factor for somebody just texted me something about Tim Taylor. So somebody sent me something. And I'll get to that after. But yeah, in regards to the scope was the problem. And we told them all of it up front. And then it all came true. I wasn't going to write another letter. I was actually approached by several people that remembered me from being on Mike's show back in September October when we talked about this. Mm-hmm. So they started reaching out to me saying, "Hey, have you seen this audit?" No. And all of a sudden a link shows up. "Will you take a look at it, please?" Sure. I looked at it, and will you write something up? And these are people. So I didn't get paid for this. I'm not getting a penny from the city of Canton. I haven't sided one way or the other. I mean, this is strictly audit stuff for us. Right. And from scope, it's bad. You guys familiar with this Tim Taylor? Somebody keeps sending me this receipt and whatnot.
Tim Taylor.
Yeah. Tim Taylor. So basically, Tim Taylor, dog, car, passed away. Repayment only came about. So somebody sent me some public records here, and this is a little concerning. I'm trying to open it on my phone here. So the incident happened back in March of 2023, I believe. Or
were you talking about the dog in the car?
Yeah. I've got a check here.
That's who Tim Taylor is. That's
right. Tim Taylor. Yeah. I ended up getting I've got somebody sent me the public records request, and you're looking at the dates, when the deposit was made, it was made 3/24/25. How did they cash the check? The check has a date of 3/12/13 on it. You can only cash a check for 60 days after the day, 60, 90 days, depending upon your bank. This check says 3/12/13. They cashed it on 3/14/25. So the question is, this is the reimbursement for the payment. I don't understand what the problem is. I understand what the problem is now that you've started to get the paperwork that's come in. But what you really need to look at was the fact that, you could have justified this. You could have simply said, "Oh, it was an oversight. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We're addressing that now. Officer Taylor is going to pay us back, or Tim Taylor is going to pay us back. And thank you very much. That was just an oversight." How do you prove it or disprove it? That's how I would have taken that. But because it didn't get paid back, and then it only got paid back the day after a Vanity Fair public request requesting that the payment history, and then the check gets written the next day. So something's up there, and it doesn't make sense. But just somebody was asking me from a paperwork standpoint, and I looked at it, and I'm like, how are you cashing a check I thought it was 23 when they talked to me. I just looked at it, and it was 13. So how do you cash a check that was backdated 12 years? It's not supposed to go through the bank system. So how do you get paid?
That's a fairly recent incident. Why wouldn't that have been maybe?
Yeah, that was 3/24. That was last month.
Right.
It only got paid.
The paperwork was in place in the check writing, I guess, back certainly when the audit came into town. I'm just curious. Evidently, that just didn't become a glaring issue.
Yeah, Patsy's saying John Como asked about it. It was actually paid on, according to the deposit slip,
all interesting.
According to the deposit slip, it was paid on 3/14/25. So it was paid on 3/14. But so basically 3/11 she asked, 3/12 he wrote it, 3/14 it got deposited. So Vanity Fair asked for it on 3/11, 3/12 he wrote the check, 3/14 it got deposited. I don't know how it got deposited, but that's part of it.
I don't know if she still does, but we know that when I sent the FOIA request, it was Helena Rafferty that receives them and responds to them. So I think that was one of the things that the audit committee recommended too, that she'd no longer handle everything like that, right?
I don't remember off the top. I mean, I've read so much of this and talked about it so much since it's come out. I'm not 100% positive on that aspect. The Tim Taylor dog thing is something that I didn't really keep myself abreast of until somebody started sending me the paperwork.
I think you're right, Mike.
I want to thank.
I'm just going to add to what you just said. I believe the audit did conclude that the chief should remove herself from, let's call them items or complaints or citizen complaints, and pass it on to the shift supervisor and generate reports and do the invest, because now she's a witness.
Oh, absolutely. No, they're not supposed. We tell chiefs don't ever go in the evidence room. There's 2 times you go in your evidence room: when you get hired and when you're about to transfer over to the next person. That's your deputy's responsibility, because if you go in there, you're compromised if there's an investigation.
Right. Mm-hmm. I actually saw a document once that indicated a firearm had been stolen from the Canton Police evidence room.
Oh, you were?
I saw a document that indicated that a firearm had been stolen from the Canton Police evidence room. It was on a face sheet, and the resident lived in Stoughton. I don't know how there was no report with it, so it was just a face sheet, but it said larceny of a firearm, location 99 Revere Street, evidence room.
Unfortunately, stuff that goes missing in evidence rooms, today's accountability standards are a lot different than the accountability standards of yesteryear. And, you've got police departments that have 40, 50 years worth of evidence in their evidence rooms and haven't done destructions. And part of the reason the destructions are a problem is because there's a limited window and time to get stuff destroyed. It's a lengthy process to get it destroyed. You have to jump through steps. You have to go to the DA's office. You have to get a judge signed off on it. And then you have to turn it in. It's an ancillary duty for all these people. So they're not going to bust their hump to take care of it. And you can get rid of 200 pieces a month. I mean, you're going to have to get a special disposition to help have the state police help you schedule a larger destruction, things of that nature. But this all takes time. And unfortunately, it's been one of those things that evidence has been forgotten. It's the dirty secret. Let's just throw it in the closet. We'll find it when we need it type of deal back decades ago. And that's still fermenting throughout evidence rooms. Everybody has old evidence. You can't get rid of homicide evidence. You can't get rid of sexual assault evidence anymore. So we're going to have a storage issue because think about it. When you're talking about evidence from a sexual assault, you're talking about bulky items. You're talking about lots of stuff, potential items. Then the test kits, and then, homicide evidence. I mean, most of that gets held by the district attorney's offices. The unattended deaths, that's still something you can't get rid of, because who knows if anybody ever says comes up and becomes something else. So you have to save all this stuff. And the accountability, the filing, it's all money. It all comes down to money, and nobody has any, and nobody wants to spend it. And, things get pushed to the wayside. People don't understand the importance of the evidence, because it's the same evidence that's in that evidence room that could potentially be used to throw you in jail if you get found responsible or found guilty of something. Do you want to trust the evidence that was used against you? I do. And, I want to make sure it was legit and it was accurate, and I'm going to make sure that I go after it. If God forbid I ever find myself on the other side, I hope I'm not. But if I do, I'm going to go after all the evidence, make sure it was legit, signed in and everything else.
Sure.
Hopefully, Canton gets it together. I mean, I'm assuming both of you, before I let you go, you both, Chief Rafferty, do you feel like she should not have her contract renewed in Canton?
She lost the locker room, Mike.
Me?
Yep.
Yes.
She lost the locker room. She's lost over half of the town, probably a lot more than half. A lot of them are too afraid to come out and too much in fear to come out and speak against what has happened over her reign. And I just think the town, to their credit, did a great job. They had to stand up in a very hostile atmosphere and raise their hand for the audit, which came out 903 to 800, I believe was the number. They were intimidated. They were in fear. They had people glaring at them, people following them around after that. They were successful with that. They've been successful with removing one of the select persons that was there for over four decades, who talked about random effing citizens on a hot mic. And I think the next step is very clear and very evident. It's a contract renewal that I don't know. I mean, if with everything that the audit has come up with and the problems, the degree of problems, how can they possibly renew that contract? Question mark.
I'll answer a little bit more on that. I don't think you can effectuate meaningful change with the current leadership because there's so much distrust. And that's what I mean by the culture. Like I said, she lost the locker room. The citizens are part of the locker room. It's not just her police department.
Correct. Yep. And I started out show tonight with the word culture, and we've come back to it at the end, Larry and Mike.
Hey, Pete, did they ever find that gun?
Don't know.
No idea where that gun went.
Any other questions where it's Easter? And sorry, boys, I didn't realize it was Easter when I agreed to say Sunday when you gave me Saturday.
It's fine with me. I don't know about Peter. It was fine with me.
No, it's fine. If we can, my feeling is if we can successfully change the direction that the Canton, the town, and the residents are in right now, and uplift it and head it in a more positive direction, I'll come out on Christmas Eve.
There you go. Yeah, I just hope it works. Like, I really feel like they need a new police chief from the outside. Just, you know, I hope Chris Albert does the right thing.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. I'm curious as to how you turn around and get back when you've already recused yourself. You're on record for the same exact reasons now that were in existence then. What's changed that allows you to vote?
There you go.
That's it. That's where we'll leave it for Chris Albert tonight. Chris, if you're listening, we all want to know. We all want to know what's changed, buddy. I want to thank Peter Murphy, Sergeant Peter Murphy, retired Canton police officer. Thank you so much for being here. Boots on the ground, as they call you. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank Larry Smith with the STIRM Group. He's a retired Massachusetts State Police. You were also in the military too, weren't you, Larry?
I was. United States Air Force Security Forces.
There you go. I want to thank you guys both for being here tonight. Easter Sunday. It's great talking to you tonight. Have a great rest of your week.
It's going to be a big week, Mike. Big week, Larry. A lot coming out.
Big week. Right. Tuesday.
Okay.
You going to be there, Peter?
You can set your watch by it.
We'll be looking for you.
Good.
Have a great week, guys. We'll see you soon. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Peter. And
Stay
thank
well.
you, Larry.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Larry.
You too.
Great job.
Great job. Bye-bye.
With the young jokes, I want to thank everyone who been super chatting me tonight. Mary Malaki, she says, "Happy birthday, Mike." It's not actually my birthday. I mentioned this earlier. It's the young jerk's birthday. If our Twitter account shows it's our birthday, it's because that's actually when we started the show. It's been, I can't believe it, 11 years. Can you believe that? It was like a streaming thing before. It was like a podcast. I don't know. It's wild. I didn't expect to be here so many years later doing the same show under the same name. It's changed a little bit, but it's not actually my birthday. My birthday's next week. We'll be celebrating next week. But I want to thank you, Mary, for sending the $5 super chat. She says, I can't believe your birthday is on 420. No, not mine. Mine's actually 427. Can you believe that? A week later. Your channel is so important. Keep going. Thank you so much, Mary. Larissa Harris, she said $9.99. She says, happy birthday, Mike. Happy birthday to the Young Jerks. You have to watch the I Don't Belong Here podcast when you have time. I like her in her view on the case from a psychology background. I have a psych degree myself. I'll check it out. Let me know if she's on X or Twitter. Also, Boston Skipper sent $4.99. Says, why so much left out of this audit? Like the total unmarked Dodge pickup in 2016. Helena need to get the F out. She's a snake. I think we kind of answered that tonight. I think Larry nailed it on that. Is the scope was so crazy. When you try to include everything, you kind of cover nothing. You know what I'm saying? So like that was the problem in this audit. They didn't narrow in and focus or give it the time and the money and the resources if you're going to go so wide with an audit. So I think that's why everything didn't get covered. Happy 420, everyone. Happy birthday. I want to thank some people on one of the last shows. I missed some Venmos. I want to make sure I thank my Venmo people. And again, we're going to be live Tuesday morning. Be streaming the Karen Reed hearing Tuesday morning, and then Tuesday night we'll be live with Bettero that evening. I'm looking forward to that. We're on the wrong account. Hold on one sec. All right, I want to thank Barbara. Barbara sent $10 the other night. Thank you so much, Barbara. I also want to thank Beth B. She said $50 the other night. She said, Mike, thank you for all you do. I'll be glad when this is over and Karen is found not guilty, but rest assured, I'll keep watching your channel. I'm a huge fan and proud to be a young jerk. I hope you're feeling better. Take care. Free Karen Reed, free FTB, Beth, and it's sunny in Naples. Thank you so much. It's sunny in Naples. I really appreciate that, Beth. Also, Colleen sent $25 the other night. She said, thanks, Mike. Good job with Mark Bettero in Canton Select Board meeting. Fellow allergy person here. Mark's suggestions are right on. Yes, they were. I'm feeling better. You can still hear it in me, though. I'm still blowing my nose. I'm not as bad. I mean, that other night with Bettero, I had to get off camera. I was sneezing and coughing all night. I putting cough drops in my mouth while I'm asking him questions. That was out of control the other night. I am feeling better. Thank you so much for the donations. The donations make me feel better as well. I might have missed these ones too from William B. This was April 16th. He said 52. He said for the retrial. Thanks. Thank you so much, William B. And there was also another one from Carrie B. Carrie B sent a donation as well. Thank you so much, Carrie B. All right, I think that's it. I'm just going to check the cash app. Make sure I didn't miss any of those last week. I haven't been checking it lately. Yeah, Gary Titus sent $10. That was a little while ago. I never thanked him. He said CPD audit whitewash. That was on April 9th. So I want to make sure I thank him as well. So I think we got everyone. I think we got them all done. I want to thank everyone. Yeah, allergies are real bad right now. I do sound congested, but I feel better. All right, I'm going to head out. I want to thank everyone. Oh, we're getting some more super chats. Every time I try to head out, you guys hit me up again. I love it. Thank you so much. Laricia. Did I say that, Larry? Laricia Harris. Sent $19.99. She said, I'll send you a link. You have to send her episode out today about Wendy Murphy and her theory on John O'Keefe. Oh, I definitely want to listen to that. Send me a link. Send me a link. I love laughing at Wendy. Wendy World. Wacky Wendy. Yeah, Wacky Wendy. Oh, it's Larisha. Larisha? Larisha. That's easy, actually. Larisha. I want to thank our moderators. I didn't see any of our mods tonight. I think hopefully they just enjoy an Easter. We really didn't need them tonight, so it wasn't like the biggest show ever. So hopefully our mods are enjoying Easter. And we'll definitely see you Tuesday morning. Yeah, I might do a show tomorrow night. I'm not sure. I might cover some video. We'll see. Tuesday morning, we'll definitely be covering Karen retrial. Tuesday night with Mark Betterow. Those are definites. So I'm going to head out. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to thank the guest again, Sergeant Peter Murphy from Canton Police Department. Thank you so much, retired Canton Police Officer Peter Murphy. Thank you so much for being here tonight, as well as Larry Smith. He's a retired Massachusetts State Trooper, and he's also with the STIRM Group. I want to thank them both for being here tonight. And all of you who are watching and commenting, thank you so much. We'll see you maybe tomorrow, if not on Tuesday. Have a great night. And if you haven't, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. We'll see you soon. Thank you.